Well, good morning, everybody. This is DearMamaSal on a rainy Monday morning. It's 3 degrees here in southern British Columbia, which would make it 37 degrees in American. I think I'd have to say that the clouds are socked in. I think that's the right expression. They're down low and they look like they're going to stay there all day. So I'm glad I'm wearing my warmer coat. It's sort of cold and wet at the same time, so that's a good one. Hope you all had a great weekend. I'm very pleased to be able to report that I managed to get all the broadcasts in this weekend, which was my hope, that I would be able to do that. Even so, as you can probably hear, I'm still fighting a little bit for breath, but definitely doing a whole lot better, and obviously it's good to be able to get back to work today. I think you guys know me well enough to know that I am just very grateful I stayed out of hospital. I think I could have ended up in hospital if I'd not done what I did, and looked after myself. So I was very glad to be able to keep myself out of there. Not something I wanted to do, that's for sure. I think my inhaler is now finished, so I'm off all the drugs now. Now it's a case of how much the rest will heal itself. I go back to the doctor on Wednesday, and then I will make a decision whether I'm well enough to do Down December. And as that's sort of like a very, very high priority of my year, I will do everything I can to make sure that I am able to do that. I think you all know that of me. So we had lots of stuff happen this weekend. Let me try and think. On the good news, I probably mentioned this over the weekend, but on the good news, we're really pleased that Manon managed to get her driving license. Yay, way to go, Manon. And it really is, to my mind, a great lesson in don't give up on yourself, because she really did struggle to get that, and when she eventually went for it, she got it first time. So you have to ask yourself, is it better to have taken it 3 times and passed, or over the course of 3 years, or taken 3 years to do it once and pass? To my mind, you passed. And awesome. And I always say that because I remember that when I wanted to become a radio ham, way before the days of the internet, I was always into communication. I can always remember that the first time I took that exam, I failed it by this much. And studied my heart out for another 6 months and passed it by this much. And it was just like, okay, but the difference was I passed. And I think only something like 22% of all people who took the exam ever passed it, so I was really happy. This was when I was in Africa, where they weren't too keen on you having the ability to broadcast around the world. So way before YouTube. I am still at the stage where I obviously have not got my Christmas decorations up, because that would have been what I was meant to do last week, and I was laid out cold last week. So my goal for this week is to actually do a little bit of Christmas shopping coming home each day, just the last little bits that I still need to do, so that by the time I come back from December, hopefully it'll all be done, so I don't have to face the crowds next week. And quite honestly, the only things I have left to do are the sort of the easier things, to pick up a couple of gift cards and to do one trip to the dollar store to pick up all the stocking stuffer type stuff. So I'm actually quite happy with that. Had an interesting letter from a viewer, and I want to talk about it because I wonder, again, it goes under that catch-all category of have people manipulate us. Anyway, I had this note come in from a viewer, and the story was, from what I can gather, if I understood it correctly, is that she has a son, a daughter-in-law, and their child all living with her. And basically, the mother does next to nothing for the child and waits for grandma to do it all. And there was quite a long thing about all the different things that the mother doesn't do for the child and all the things that grandma is now expected to do for the child. And I'm not sure how the rest of you feel about that, but I had two reactions to that, and one was to ask, how long did it take you to train them to be their slave? Because basically that's what she'd become. They just wait for her to get up and feed the baby, change the baby, dress the baby, do all those sort of things. They just stay in bed because grandma will do it. Well, that means they've been trained that grandma will do it, which means that grandma's been doing it for a long time. And she even mentioned that, she had in fact one day just stayed in bed to see what would happen and nothing did. So I said, she needs to sit the family down and have a very serious talk to them about what their responsibilities as parents. And it's not her responsibility as a grandmother to do their job. And they are two healthy adults. And then the second thing I said was, and when you have that conversation, tell them that if they choose not to be responsible for their child, you'll call family services on them. Because the way in which they are not looking after their child is abusive. So, pretty tough talk, and I didn't like to have to say it, but it is what I believe. And nobody as a grandparent wants to call social services on their grandchild. But, the truth is, if that child is not being looked after properly, and the only way it's getting looked after properly is if grandma does it. Now, the interesting thing was that grandma actually talked about going to court and actually trying to get custody of the child. Which was an interesting perspective. But, the reason I'm talking about it is because we've all got our version of this, I think. How many of you know that you are being emotionally triggered? And that's what it is. It's an emotional thing. They know emotionally you're not going to let your grandchild, go without care, so you'll get up and do it for them. And I think the emotional trigger manipulation is a very common one. And so I'm bringing it up because what would you do? How long would you put up with that behavior before you put your foot down and said, excuse me, this is not the way it works? And this is not the way that adults behave. That's the way a teenager behaves, not an adult. So anyway, it was a point that I wanted to make because it's Christmas time. And I think Christmas time, from my experience anyway, is a time of some pretty high emotional manipulation. And the discussion I'd like to have is about fight your battles. You know, which battle do you want to fight? Now, my problem is that I don't keep my mouth shut well, as you can probably imagine. And the reason I'm saying that is I had a wonderful example this weekend when I went to go and get my hair cut. And I heard somebody be quite rude, I thought, to a member of staff where I have my hair cut. And they were subsequently proven to be incorrect in what they said. And I happened to be standing there long enough to know that. And so without thinking, I said, and an apology would have been nice. And the person who'd been unfairly challenged said, I don't even notice it. And I said, what? And she said, I don't even notice it. She said, you know, people pick on me and I don't even notice it. I just go straight over me, and I'm going, wow. And part of me goes, you must live, you know, a much easier life than some of us. Because there's no way, if somebody picks on me like that, there's no way it goes over my head. I feel that. So I guess that I'm more sensitive than most on those sort of issues, and I wonder how many of you are the same. And my goal this Christmas time is to try not to get triggered too much. Just let it go. It's not that important. It's Christmas. But here's my challenge. My challenge always is that if you let it go, you're enabling it. So I always have this catch-22, which is, where do you set the boundary and where do you let it go? If anybody's got the right answer for that, I'm sure it will be helpful. Now, for those of you who are listening to this and remember the Denmarkians, otherwise known as the Danes, that we used to have as regular viewers, I just wanted to let you know they popped in to say hello yesterday. And for those of you who remember Jesper and Annemette, just to let you know that they're both doing well. And Annemette apparently has stopped smoking. Good for her. She apparently stopped for 6 months, which is wonderful. And Jesper was telling us that his, he was having some problems with his teeth, and that's all being fixed up beautifully. So that is really good to hear. We also hear, for those of you who know Oz, that Oz is still doing well. He's still in Hong Kong, and we're going to do everything we can to try and get him onto a broadcast somewhere round about Christmas time, if we can. I was thinking, what an honor it must be to be Oz and know that this many people can't wait for you to get back on a broadcast. You know, that really is quite something. A very unforgettable person. So my thought for the day would have to be, watch out. Watch out for what's happening around you in terms of being manipulated. Watch out for people pressing your buttons today. I also wanted to update you. I believe that we're probably about, I don't know for sure, but we're probably about 94 days, I would think, somewhere in there until spring. I'll check and correct it. But what I was going to say was that you will remember that I made a decision to up my internet to try and save me some time in the evenings with the uploads. I've done 2 now, uploads, one test one and then one proper one, at 2 completely different times of the day, and in both times that I did it, it took 23 minutes instead of 118. I think in November I averaged 118 minutes to upload, and that's twice now it took sort of in the range of 20-25 minutes, somewhere in there. What a difference. So that's definitely going to make my life a lot easier. Hope you all have a wonderful day. I would remind you to look after yourself, as I've tried to do in the last week. And by the way, I expect to be judged. I expect people at work to think that I went Christmas shopping for the week, because some people will think that. And that is in some ways human nature, and so I'm not going to let that manipulate my day. If people want to believe that, then they will, and not much I can say is going to stop them believing that. On the other hand, there'll be others that will know there's no way I would not have been at work if I were capable of being there. So, it's just, I don't know if you've noticed that, but if people want to believe the worst in you, they're going to. And I've now stopped trying to fight that. And I normally say to them, well, I'm really sorry that's what you feel about me, but, obviously I'm not going to be able to change your mind, so I'm not even going to try. Occasionally, I say it actually is totally incorrect, but I'm not even going to try and convince you of that, because it's going to be a waste of my energy. Wow. I'm just looking at a building that's gone up. This particular corner that I'm at used to have 2 lots. Somebody bought up both lots. Put up a dirty great building. It's big as in left to right, not up and down. It's big in, takes up the whole of the 2 lots. It's amazing. One wonders if they'll have any parking space there. Huh. And I noticed that a lot of the buildings that are going up now, I don't know what it's like where you are, but a lot of them going up now are prefab concrete walls. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you all for all the kind wishes while I've been sick. I really appreciated them and needed them, quite honestly. And let's hope that I continue to improve this week so that I can go down and enjoy down December. This is DearMamaSal saying, Bye-bye, everybody. Have a good one. Bye-bye for now.